Hello, everybody. This is Dylan with the first episode of Build or Break, an Age of Sigmar themed army idea. So, with these videos, the idea is to think of a Age of Sigmar army, cool theme or conversion idea that I've had, and see if it would be realistic to build it using some bad Photoshop skills, looking at some current units, and seeing what it would take to make that army take place on or come onto the tabletop. I'm a very slow builder and converter, so a lot of these ideas will probably be ideas only, and hopefully someone else may take them and run with them and create something awesome. But let's get into the first one. So the first idea I want to talk about is a Cities of Sigmar theme based off of cog forts. And so cog forts are these kind of ideas of these giant walking or rolling fortresses built by one of the Cities of Sigmar, usually Greywater Fastness, but I believe Hammerhall has some as well. You can find some information on these in two Malign Portent stories. Those are The Offer and Iron and Oak. Those are both still on the Warhammer community website. If you search for them with the Malign Portents words as well, you should be able to find those. Both really good stories. And then in the Cities of Sigmar Battle Tome, there's a number of kind of references to either cog forts or other sort of cog machines or creations. And you can see some text up on the screen here of some things I pulled out of that battle tome. So there's one where it talks about the cog forts kind of always expanding and rolling outward on these great iron tracks to make the city's borders bigger. They talk about these smoke belching machines and airborne cogwork bombers sweeping out and throwing cannonballs and explosive shells on their enemies. They talk about these cog factories in Azerheim that are producing all sorts of crazy machines, these gear-driven gun walkers, artillery trains, repeating cannons, things like that. And then in talking about cogsmiths in the book, they talk about how they're these techno-arcane engineers, and they master these strange war machines and black powder weaponry. So a number of reference points for you in some of the Warhammer literature that's out there, or the reference materials if you're looking for that. So getting into some rules I try and keep when I'm doing a conversion or trying to think of a themed army idea, or if I could build a selection of models around it, is trying to do WYSIWYG as much as possible, especially for those weapons. So if it's a great sword, some sort of big two-handed weapon that's going to either cut or bash their heads in. If it's a steam tank, it needs a big gun. It needs to be pretty hefty, so that part of WYSIWYG is so that it's easily recognizable without a long explanation. So if I ever get to the table or if I'm playing with someone and say, hey, these are Cities of Sigmar from Greywater Fastness, and this is a steam tank, and these are handgunners, it's pretty easy for them to make that connection in their mind. And then I try to keep the GW parts. I like the GW parts. I know they're expensive, but it makes it easier just to kind of play with everybody in tournaments or at a GW store or anywhere like that. So I try to kind of follow these as much as possible when I'm thinking about this. So the next kind of part of my process is after I have that idea of like, oh man, what would a cog fort army look like if I could do whatever I wanted? And going back to some of that text they pulled out, they talk about these gun platforms with these kind of walking around. And so that's an idea that's kind of stuck in my head as I've thought about it. These are all images, Warhammer images. GW owns them. These are not mine. But top left, you see some handgunners, nice and armored, much more armored than the models you see on their website or you can buy on their website. You've got this cogsmith-looking engineer guy, Dwarden guy on the bottom with this big hammer. So he's got some sort of rifle or a carbine on his back, some nice plate mail. And then this last image is from the old Warhammer Fantasy side of things, and it's got, I believe that the top left one is as well, but it's definitely a devoted to Sigmar reference. But this big wheeled kind of contraption, it's got smoke billowing out of it. There's a city on top of it. Uh, probably a giant war altar with a giant flame thing coming out the front. To me, that screams a cog fort in a sense, right? So this is one of those wheeled things that's kind of going out, powered by steam or fire or some sort of engine furnace inside of it. Some more kind of reference pictures, things to try and find. Say, okay, what do I like? What do I don't like? These are all engineers and a great cannon from old Warhammer Fantasy. Love the rifles and kind of the scope on it. A little bit of kind of advanced technology with the guy in the monocle on the top right. just very kind of industrial looking. So trying to carry that through when I finally start building some of my own stuff. This picture really kind of spoke to me and kind of helped me come up with this idea. It's one of the images that came from Games Workshop when they came out. I think Firestorm back in the day, but it's definitely gray water fastness. You know, these giant cannons kind of up on these ramparts, and these guys trying to fire them off. And I try and use this color scheme later on, this orange and the kind of this plate silver looking things. But I thought that was a great color scheme, very kind of evocative of what we're going for with this idea I had. And then some outside reference material. So away from Games Workshop, Mortal Engines, the movie came out a while back, a couple years ago. If you haven't read the books are incredible, much better than the movie. I know the movie wasn't great, but had some good imagery in there. And this is some reference art for the movie. I think this is actually London in both scenes, but it could be a different city. The bottom right's definitely London. But these are these giant, kind of tracked uh, cities on wheels rolling around, eating up all these other cities, little cities trying to run away, but kind of gives you a good sense of scale and how big could a cog fort really be, especially if you read those two malign important stories, you'll realize, man, maybe they really were as big as kind of these Mortal Engine cities. So after I looked at kind of reference material on the internet and what had Games Workshop done, what else was in popular media, started looking for, what are things that current players or converters or painters are doing, and none of these are mine. I know the bottom right is Sam Bottle. Before he worked for Games Workshop, now he works for them. But if anybody else knows who built these other models, feel free to put it in the comments or let me know. I'd be glad to give them a shout out if I knew who they were. I thought the top left is really cool. These kind of chainmail, these nice rifles. I kind of steal this idea later on, but it really kind of advanced this idea of these cog works forward a little bit. It's got this kind of repeater carbine. It's not just cloth anymore, but it's definitely some heavily armored guys. So I thought that was really neat. They're probably using Dark Shard bodies or Phoenix Guard bodies, and then those are the Adaptus Mechanicus Guitari rifles, which are great rifles. Lots of people use those. Bottles down there, he's using the old Archer bodies before they went out of print or out of production, and looks like Eternal Guard or Wildwood Rangers or Deepwood Rangers, whatever the Eternal Guard alternate kit build is, they're using those heads or maybe green stuff heads, and then regular rifles and the Griffhound there, but kind of dirty industrial looking again, not quite fantasy as some of the other stuff. And then on that last picture is definitely it's a Storm Fiend from Skaven, but he put the head of an Ogre on there, so I thought that was really cool. Good idea for like, hey, do you need some kind of like subhuman or maybe some abnormal humans that are like pushing around some giant levers down in your cog fort or your giant cog walker if you have that. Here's some more. These two on the left, definitely more on the 40K side. I think I follow this person on Twitter, but I can't remember who they are. But they use these Centurion bodies, kind of give you these exoskeleton suits. So maybe a little too far advanced for a cog fort, but I thought that it was nice, kind of again industrial with some human in there as well. Some good scale, not quite human, not infantry size, but a little bit bigger. So I thought that was really neat. And on the right, you've got these guys, again, not mine, but Shadow Warrior bodies with those Arcanaut or Kharadron Overlord Thunderer rifles and then some heads on them. Very kind of like, again, advanced weaponry, some more armor on them than the regular handgunners, and the cape to probably keep them warm. So I thought these will come into play again. I like this inspiration. It gave some inspiration from this picture as well. So after I think about kind of the inspiration, I didn't go into like some army building and I'm trying to think, okay, what do I want to have in my army? What faction? Is it going to be the same faction? Is it going to be a different faction? How much of a proxy or accounts as is it going to be? And so for this one, I was really like, okay, this is definitely going to be Age of Sigmar, definitely Order. What do I want first? And this first general model, the one with the hammer and the pistols, probably one of my favorite models from back in 8th edition. And unfortunately, I never bought one. It's fine cast, and I hate fine cast, but man, this great model, this industrial with the plate mail, the plate armor, and the handgun with this hammer as well, and a little bit over the top with the feathers and the daggers in his helmet. But then we get to the current Free Guild General model on the website for GW, and you get this guy with this giant two-handed sword, which is pretty cool, but can't stand this thing. He looks horrible. Doesn't look like he's leading anybody. I believe he was an Empire captain back in 8th edition. But so that's kind of, if I make this, I would love for it to have a hammer and a pistol, but I think it probably needs to have a giant sword because if you're going to buy it and play it, straight out of the box, it's going to come with a sword according to Games Workshop. So trying to keep that in mind. The next thing I thought about was handgunners. All these stories talk about, these kind of like battalions of guys with rifles, just kind of pouring fire down on the Sylvaneth or Beastmen or whoever from on top of these cog forts. Fire and lead's going to win the day, and faith in Sigmar. So again, the models from the website, again, I think these are 7th edition, maybe 8th edition, but I'm not a fan of them. They're blocky, and still the rank and file models. They look way too like, oh, Holy Roman Empire came and took away our pants and gave us hose, and I don't know how this would work in Age of Sigmar, but here we are, and we've a mutant green monkey. But if I'm going to make handgunners, they need to have guns, obviously. They need to have rifles, and they probably need to look pretty human as well, because that's what these guys look like. Pretty simple. Next thing I wanted was a steam tank. I started a thread on TGA a long time ago about what would a cog fort look like, and people had some great ideas. I drew some stuff, and through that I realized, man, if I ever built a cog fort army, the cog fort would be huge. It'd be bigger than the table, especially if you read the stories. So I can't build that. So what if I build an expeditionary force? What would that look like? It needs to probably be pretty fast moving, pretty mobile. So a good, to me, proxy representation of something would be like a scout cog work machine sort of thing. So a steam tank would be a good counts as. So if I'm going to use a steam tank, it needs to be armored. It's got to have, to me, it needed this cannon on it. It needs a secondary gun and a turret, and it needs either a guy on top or a rifle on top. It needs kind of to resemble sort of this shape. I also really like the steam work stuff on the back. The chimney is a little, I don't love that flared look, but the barrel and the gears and all that stuff, I love that. So I wanted to try and incorporate that if I use the steam tank. The next thing I started thinking about was, okay, so I've got a battle line unit, I've got a behemoth, I've got a general. In my mind, cog forts are going to have mechanics, these gearheads, these laborers or just workers like greasing up stuff, dumping oil in the different gears, making sure the steam's hot enough, burning wood, burning coal, whatever it is. So how am I going to represent that? Um, and at this stage, I wasn't really sure what it would represent, how I would put that on the table. But I was thinking, it's like, okay, what's a good kind of basic unit, not super good, something that counts as battle line? Because if I ever want to play this match play, I need probably 3 battle line units for if I'm gonna play 2,000 points. So I've got handgunners. I'm not sure I want to do free guild guard. Not sure I want to do spear guys because again, they're on this cog fort, they're running around close quarters. They probably need a weapon they can stick on their belt. Maybe a shield that goes over their back, something like that, but not something big and bulky, right? So I was like, okay, well, Arcanauts, they've got handguns, they've got pistols, they've got swords, blades, axes, and they're already known for kind of being the guys that work on Kharadron Overlord ships and mining things and kind of tearing stuff off dead animals, things like that. They're definitely not free cities, but they're order as well. They're humanoid, so it's not that far of a stretch. So I was like, okay, if I need some mechanics or whatever that are pressed in the service, I can use an Arcanaut War Scroll. I was also thinking, especially from these stories, they have kind of their cavalry riding out, and these were all before the Adaptus Mechanicus releases with the Robo Horse Dog things. But I was thinking, okay, I need, again, thinking scale. I've got my handgunners that are human size, small infantry size. I've got a steam tank. It's going to be a big behemoth sort of thing. What's something in between? Cities of Sigmar, demigryphs are kind of the elite. Pistoliers are fast, mobile. They've got guns, so again, that industrial feel. Does that work? How am I going to represent that on the table? I wasn't really sure, but I was like, okay, these are 2 good ideas that I can kind of build off of once I get those 3 kind of base units done. I was also thinking, okay, so if I have mechanics and I have handgunners, do we want some sort of maybe elite melee unit, like somebody that guards the general or the cogsmith or the Arco McCain guys making the cog fort run? Like, is there an honor guard? Things like that. I had way back before this put together some Tempest Scion models from 40K and tried to give them swords and cutlasses and Marauder horsemen shields filed down. similar idea, but they didn't really look good. So I was like, okay, like I've got this idea in my head. I don't know how to make it work. Could they count as iron drakes, longbeard, or iron breakers, longbeards, great swords? If it's great swords, they need to have a big weapon. If they're iron breakers or longbeards, they either need to have those axes and some sort of big kind of beardy looking thing, a full helmet. Iron breakers, I think if they've got a round shield and an axe, that's probably good enough to count as a little bit of a stretch, maybe. But it's something kind of holding me back from this is how do I make this how do I make this industrial? The dwarven or dwarden iconography on the bottom two pictures, I didn't feel like meshed really well with this kind of techno steam thing I was going for. So this was something I had in mind, but didn't quite know what to do with. So after I kind of had my base units of this is where I think I'm going, use paint.net. It's a free app or a free program you can get off the internet. I'm horrible at Photoshop, but I can kind of cut off some pictures from GW and paste them onto the other models. And so this is my mock-up for a handgunner. It's a dark shard, dark elf, dark shard body. It's got uh, a Adaptus Mechanicus Scutari rifle on it, and then the alternate build for that has more like not the long rifles, but the heavy kind of almost automatic weapon looking plasma things, that helmet on it. And I was like, all right, this looks pretty cool. And this looks pretty industrial to me, but also looks still a little bit medieval. I can dig this. I think it'll give us what we're looking for if someone sees 10 or 20 or 30 of these on the table and say, hey, it's Age of Sigmar, Ironweld Arsenal, or I guess Ironweld wasn't around anymore, but Greywater Fastness, they'll probably know, hey, handgunners, got it, easy to remember. So I was pretty proud of this. I did a couple other mock-ups. I tried something with again, those Wood Rangers with like those double-handed kind of axe-looking things from the Wanderers. Um, Trying to do some elite infantry, and I was like, this isn't working. I had seen some other stuff online, and I'll show you some references later. So I had some ideas of some other mock-ups, but this is probably the best mock-up I put together. I was like, all right, this is good enough. I can do this. So after mock-ups, yep. So after mock-ups, I started, trying to build the army out. So I was like, all right, let me start with some handgunners. I know it's the unit that works. And one of the great things about kind of converting these themed armies is you're paying double, right? You're buying probably 2, maybe 3 units for everything you're building. So far left is the stock model. Top right is my group of 10 that I came up with, and then a really badly painted model. I haven't painted anything in probably 4 years. So trying to get back in the scheme of, or the groove of painting. Came up with this orange and green color scheme again from that Greywater Fastness picture. Not quite what I wanted, but it's okay, serviceable. But the top picture, you can see there's 10 handgunners up there. They're all dark shard bodies. It's mostly either pistolier or greatsword heads. I had a bunch of bits left over, and then Scutari guns. Forget rifles, whatever they're called. The hardest part of this build is the arms are always, to me, the hard part. The arms on the Scutari had more space in between them if you kind of joined them at the weapon than the Dark Shard torso was wide. So if you just tried to put them on the torso, there was a gap and it didn't work. The Dark Shards also have this kind of flared out uh, arm or like pauldron on their shoulders that ended up having to kind of file and trim down. So these are some kind of ugly conversions where those join up. I ended up using kind of a mix of Dark Shard arms, Adaptus Mechanicus arms, Katari arms, just trying to get the rifles on there in a way that would look okay once they're painted up again. Uh, I really enjoy kind of the list building, the thinking about it in my head, and I'm really slow at building it and then especially painting it. So hey, if I can get this kind of on the table, I'm happy with it. But you'll see also a general up there, early version of a general I'll talk about in a little bit. The captain or the champion of the unit has the feather in his hat and then has this kind of sniper rifle, the long rifle thing from the original handgunner kit. So, or sorry, not from the handgunner, from the steam tank. So that's how I distinguished him. So I was pretty proud with this unit. And you can see this is the most I've done of painting. I've got one guy painted. So hopefully we'll get some more done. The next thing I started working on was a general. Again, I love the model on the left. And from that model on the left, I had built that guy in the previous picture with kind of the cutlass and the pistol. Like, hey, this is a great proxy. He's, I think he's an Inquisitor from he's from the start collecting Tempest Scion box for 40K. I don't remember if he's an Inquisitor or what, some sort of leader. But I basically just replaced the 40K pistol with a repeater pistol for Age of Sigmar, and then I, had that sword on him. And then when I decided that didn't work, I gave him this big hammer from the Indrin Rigger model for KO. I ended up not using him as a general, free guild general. He's going to be a KO admiral, but I really love the way he came out. Gave him a different feather in his hat, sliced off his Quillia for the Imperium, but pretty much left him the same other than that. The guy on the right is what I'm going to end up using as my free guild general. He's got kind of a time glass in his hand. I was trying to find a map or a telescope or something to give him to show that he was kind of observing the battlefield, but couldn't find anything, so I gave him that. And then he has the bottom of that scepter is from the commander, the Tempest Scion model, with the steam tank kind of drive me closer, beat stick the guy in the top holds on the top. He has a pistolier head, and then I gave him a great sword on the back of him. So, and it's a great sword body with the Tempest Scion great cloak for their commander and one of the Tempest Scion arm on it. And so I think he's probably going to take a little bit of piece. People might have to look at him a couple times to remember general, but got a sword on his back. The stock model has a sword. He's a human guy. He's kind of pointing out like, hey, go that way. So I think he does a pretty good job of showing that he's the general and kind of the guy in charge. The next thing, and one of the things I was most excited about, so I was kind of working on all these at the same time, was a steam tank. So I took a dune crawler and a steam tank and I just kind of mashed them together. Um, so you can see I've started to paint the steam tank. It needs some more grain layers. You can see that paint's not sticking too well yet, but I really just took that dune crawler body and legs and I stuck on the turret from the steam tank on the top of it. It doesn't sit down quite as far. And then I put a cannon from the steam tank on there and added the hatch onto the side and tried to add some little greebly things to make it look like, it's powered by steam. And here's some dials and stuff so that you can see it's kind of older than 40K. I ended up not putting a guy on the top. I thought the model kind of got busy enough, so I left that off. You can see the valves and the things on the back. Those are just from the back of the steam tank. I just kind of rearranged them a little bit to kind of give it what looks like a drive shaft going to these legs. So you can imagine, okay, the boiler's boiling, the stuff's coming out, it's making these legs move, it's making the thing turn. So I've seen a lot of kind of similar models online. I think I saw one for sale on eBay for like 30 bucks that was similar to mine, but I liked it. So I had kind of three good models. I was like, all right, three good things. And then I got to the point where I was like, all right, I need something else. I need more than 3 units. I need A for points and B for variety. I didn't really know where to go, and I was like, okay, um, Demigryphs, Pistoliers, those are okay. What about Skywardens? I was already thinking Arcanauts. I had a Arcanaut Admiral or a KO Admiral. I was like, Skywardens are kind of cool. They've got these sky pikes. They've got guns. I like the idea of them, but I don't want to use those models. So this is probably the most expensive kit I've started putting together. It's Orc Warbikers, Skywardens, and then I may have to end up using some Orlocks on there as well, and bits from a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, not finished building it yet. It's taken me forever. I put their inflatable thing on where in the back where the wheel is. Put a backpack above that from the Thunderer kit, and then there's like a barrel up there as well. Put those sky mines down there. Put their little um, rudder on the front, so kind of steer them around. I'm probably going to have to use the orc bodies. These things are huge. I had no idea before I got these how big those orc bodies were, but and this is why I haven't finished it, is I kind of got discouraged trying to fit the orc body and do a weapon swap, take out their things and add the sky pikes and add a pistol, and getting the scale right is going to be hard. And then putting on I decided to, I think, use KO heads. I might wait until I get some Orlocks and use Orlock heads, but they kind of lean forward, so everything's really smushed in there. And if I do it, I'm not sure I'm going to get it painted, but if I don't do it, I don't know if it'll work before I paint it, so I'm kind of like stuck at this point. It'll probably be the last thing I do, and you can see kind of my progress so far. But this is a great idea. They're kind of gonna be like jet bikes flying around, powered and floating from the back and pointed down with the rudder kind of driving them around. So I thought that was really neat. Yeah. Again, I scraped off a bunch of the orc stuff that was on there as well. So I came back to the mechanic idea and said, okay, I don't want to use Arcanauts. What else can I use? Went looking through the website, found Orlocks. I think Orlocks look pretty industrial. A couple of the things I don't like about them are their shoulder pads and then these big fat kind of greaves on their legs like you're playing soccer. So I don't have these models yet, but probably be the next thing I purchase if I keep working on this army. I think with some head swaps, some of their heads are okay, some of them are a little futuristic, but I think the goggles are okay, but like the masks and things, maybe not. Some head swaps and then changing out the weapons. And so I did another one of those quick little mock-ups, and I gave them a KO pistol and an axe. So I think that works pretty well, especially if you get rid of those shoulder pads and maybe file off a little of those leg shin guards. So I like where this is going. I think that the guy in the Orlok picture with the kind of the big hook looking thing, that looks like the sky hook or whatever. So I think that's pretty cool. I think the sky pike would fit on one of these models. So I'm not sure if I want to use KO bits that, this is a $100 conversion for 10 models for 100 points if I do that, or maybe just use some of my old free guild bits, use free guild weapons instead, pistoliers, things like that. So still in progress, but I like the way the mock-up turned out, so I'll probably move forward with this. So after that, I was like, all right, some unexpected pivots, what's going on? Again, I had this Admiral model that I realized didn't really work as a general. I mean, I think he's fine as a general, but based on the current model, it's not WYSIWYG. So I already kind of started incorporating KO into my list. So it's now kind of a mixed order list if I'd ever play it in open or ranked or tournament or anything like that. But I think this matches pretty well that KO. He's got the pistol, he's got the hammer. He kind of looks like a captain or a pilot or something like that. So I think that works for an admiral. So the current state of this army and kind of where I'm at right now, I've got a free guild general built. I've got a KO admiral built. I've got the old cogsmith, the metal one. It's the image down here on the right. I've got him primed in black. I need to reprime him. I might haven't painted up yet. I really like the new model the more I look at it, but I also like this axe or this hammer on the old guy, so I'm kind of struggling with that. I have the 10 handgunners built and primed. Got 5 thunderers, which is something I forgot to talk about, but you can see kind of in front of me, or in this picture, there's 5 thunderers that are along with my built models, and so these are Tempest Scion bodies with free guild, great sword, or pistolier heads, and then those thunder weapons. Again, the arms on here are really difficult. You can see the guy with the feather behind the general. Those arms don't look quite right, and the guy behind him the same way. But that was kind of the point of this. Like, I need to get these guys built. I don't have good weapon. I don't have any other good arms to really use for them. Tempest Scion arms don't. The hand placements don't match. With Thunderers are kind of underslung, like holding it down by their gut, but these guys hold them much higher. So I think they'll work on the table, but if you look at them too close, they get a little wonky. I'm working on those 3 Skyriggers. I've got the steam tank built. I've also got a gun hauler built. He's in the top right there. I need to put him on the flight stand and put the pilots. And I was trying to do some human pilots, but the spots for them are pretty big. So if I do humans, there's a lot of space to fill there. So I'll probably do KO pilots. The idea being that it's propellers instead of aether propelled, or instead of buoyed by the aether. So one of the propellers isn't on the other side, but I put the supports for the big balloon out like wings, put some propellers on there. I'm going to use some bits to cover up the Duarden face and put some Sigmar regalia or insignia on there and fly that bad boy around. So I think this comes to about 970 points uh, uh, listed up there. If I turn those Skyriggers into demigriffs, which I think also works, they're kind of mounted cavalry looking dudes. They'll have lances or they'll have skypikes, which could be lances or halberds. Pretty easy. I think it goes up to over 1,000, and that would give me 2 battle line units as well if I needed it. If I was trying to play match play. The next steps for what I would do with this army, have 10 more handgunners on order, 10 more dark shards. I need to pick up some more Skitarii rifles. I have 10 Skitarii Vanguard that I've tried to turn into some sort of melee unit, but haven't had anything I find work out. Need to get some Arcanauts. Again, that's some Orlocks and some bits probably. I have a Hellblaster / volley gun kit, and that kit, the old plastic one, has both of those weapons in it, just one kind of chassis for it. So I'll probably, if I build those, I'll buy these servo haulers from 40K, take the cranes off, and put the weapons on the two kind of tractor looking things. Back before the cannons were kind of written out of the book, I was going to put an Iron Blaster cannon on the big crane on the back that's getting pulled, but now that's not really in the lore, the rule book anymore. I'll probably skip that. I was really excited when the Adeptus Mechanicus stuff was released at Open Day or previewed. I think this flyer is going to be pretty cool. What I have a what's it called? A gyro bomber and a gyrocopter, that kit. And so if I get this thing, I'm going to take that canopy off the front and put that gyro bomber cockpit up front, and then I'll probably take the legs off and just use the landing gear on the bottom. The wings may go away. I'm probably going to look for propellers. I have those gyrocopter propellers. I may need to get another set of them, but I'm not really sold on the wings and the legs. But I think the cockpit change, if there's, especially if those doors open, put those bombs on the back of it. I have, if I may need to get some more Skyrigger bubbles, forget what they're called, to kind of hoist it up, but some sort of bubble, maybe the gun hauler one on the back of that to kind of fly it around, and then some propellers for direction. So I think that might count as a frigate for me. And then I'm thinking, the more I think about it, I might do some iron breakers. I like these blood bowl dwarves. They look pretty cool, good movement. A lot of my army is pretty static. Uh, and I have iron breaker weapons because I have a box of iron breakers. So I might put the iron breaker weapons on these guys. Or I also have a bunch of flagellant maces, so I may put those maces on here instead. Again, trying to think of something that's like really kind of industrial. Those maces may go in the Arcanauts as well, but some kind of industrial. I would probably try and change the headouts to those Ironbreaker heads if they will work. I'm not sure if they will or not, but it's pretty cheap kit to buy, so that might be a direction I move into. I've also thought about Necromunda Goliath, especially with those new releases, as great swords. If I can figure out some weapons, I really like their big hammers. I would love to get the Adeptus Mechanicus kind of giant gear axe hammer thing, but it's only on one model and it's really difficult to find. It's like $10 a pop on eBay. So if I do everything on this next step list, it gets me a 670 points. And then I could do another steam tank or something like that to get me to 2K if I ended up doing that. So I think this project is definitely a build. You've seen that I've already started doing it. I'm not gonna break it. I might not get all the way to 2K. I've kind of reached the end of, I think, my hobby stamina with it, partly because I'm so slow with things. But there's a number of other people that are also doing different kind of cog work type things about free cities. Vince, Warhammer Weekly on Twitter, Tomb King Tristan Gray on Twitter, and then Stone Monk Gamer on Twitter are all doing some really cool stuff. Vince, top right there, that's a um, ironclad he's built. He's done a lot of things as well. So his is definitely, he paints a lot better than I do. He probably converts better than I do as well. His is definitely more polished. It's a little too kind of advanced looking for me, but I like it. And then Tristan Gray down here on the bottom left, he's got these, I think they're great swords, maybe Phoenix Guard guys he's built using Stormcast weapons and bits, and then Necromunda, I think Enforcers with Free Guild heads. So those will look pretty cool to me. He has some handgunners and some nice cool jet bikes as well. You can find that on his Twitter. And then Stone Monk Gamer, he has a blog, a website, runs the Mortal Realms podcast with all their different shows, the network there. He's been doing a lot of things. He's got some kind of techno ogres. He has a frigate that looks a little similar to Vince's ironclad, but his isn't closed up on top. He also has this really cool looking cog work griffin that I think is really neat. It's that bottom right picture. So a lot of other people doing a lot of great things. If you've got something going on that's Free Cities related or Cogwork related, let me know. Post it up in the comments. I'd love to look at it. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.